Hello, everybody, and welcome along to another Integral Health podcast with me, Ben Calder, from the Centre for Integral Health. And I'm really happy today to introduce my social media friend and colleague, Joe Howarth of the Happiness Club, who we've known each other for a couple of years now, but I think this is the first time we've actually had a conversation together, isn't it? Hi, Joe.
It is. Hi, it is. Nice to talk to you.
Yeah, and thank you for coming along today. So, Joe is a bastion of positive support online, and for a good period of time now has been running her happiness club. And although you guys in the audio are not going to pick this up, as Joe and I are recording this, I can see behind her this beautiful pillow print that says happiness is not a destination, it's a way of life. And that just beautifully frames you, I think, Joe. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got here? So those of you that don't know Joe, you can get a bit of an introduction.
Thank you. So yeah, I'm Joe Howarth. On social media, I'm Joe Happiness Howarth. Obviously, I do get asked if that's my real middle name on a regular basis. It isn't. By trade, I'm an advanced hypnotherapist and a mindfulness practitioner. So I started my career as a jobbing therapist, seeing people on a one-to-one basis. And then I had the urge to help them more. I had clients who wanted to put me in their pocket and take me home with them. And I remember I became a therapist because therapy helped me many, many, many times in my life and still does. Um, and I can remember that feeling with my first therapist of wanting him to come home with me and tell me how to live my life on a daily basis, not just for the hour I got with him a week. And so I had urge to help people more. To obviously I couldn't actually move in with all my clients, so and so the Happiness Club was born. It was a way really of me keeping that connection with my one-to-one clients in between their sessions, and it grew from there. Um, so yeah, I'm really proud of the Happiness Club. As of in about a week's time, we will just about hit 1,000 members, which is just breathtaking and makes me go, whoa, dude. And I'm not quite sure how that happened, but it's awesome that it did. I love the idea that we help so many people on a daily basis. That fills me with joy. So
I love the fact that there's somebody else out there that uses the term dude in sentences as an adult. That makes me feel better already, because that means when I describe something as awesome, that's also okay, because then we can use, we can split it up. It's awesome, dude, and just make it really good. And I totally get that as well. I mean, I've had some reasonably substantial cash offers to move in with clients and be there all the time to work things out, and my answer to them is always, you can't genuinely afford me, and you wouldn't really want me living with you 24/7. It wouldn't be anywhere near as nice as this hour seems, but
yeah.
because we're human after all, aren't we? We don't stop being human, but we're just people who are great at being able to be in a particular state with you while you come and see us as well, so we can support that, which I think is always fun. But so what drew you into doing this? You started out in hypnotherapy, and and I guess in some ways, if it's like so many of us in therapeutics, it started because we got that help and then we wanted to move forward. But what was it about that process for you that really drew you into doing the hypnotherapy?
So for me, hypnotherapy was the practice that changed my life completely in my mid 20s, which feels like 5 minutes ago, was much longer than that. Um, but it really, up until I discovered that, I just I grew up in a really negative environment. I had just never come across this way of thinking. I didn't even know it was a possibility to think this way. I didn't know it was a possibility to change anything about the way you were as a person. I just thought, well, tough bananas, this is how it is. Um, I just had no conscious awareness of any of this stuff. I just thought this is life and this is what you do. So for me, it was a total revelation that you didn't have to be how you'd always been, and you didn't have to stay in that way of thinking or behaving, and that there were things you could do to change it. And it was such a, and then I came across mindfulness, oh my goodness, nearly 15 years later. um and again, that had the same kind of impact on me. I studied mindfulness because I kept hearing about it, and I could not get my head around how something that sounded so simple was having this enormous impact on people. I thought, from what I heard about it, I was like, well, I already know all of that stuff. I already, because I've done this therapy so many times through my life up to this point. So I already know that. So I don't understand how that's going to change anything for me. And mindfulness blew my mind, just totally. Just, I genuinely felt like someone had found a second pair of eyelids and opened them for me. I was like, crap, I thought I knew. I thought I was self-aware, and I thought I knew all of this stuff, and I didn't know anything. Um, so when I had the two of those things, and I'm sure you'll understand this, I couldn't not share it. I couldn't not do it. It was, if I knew that I had tools that could help other people in the way that I'd been helped, I couldn't not.
I love that as well. You know, I just love that energy of wanting to share it, and I totally get that. It's one of those processes that for myself is like, how could I not want to share some of this stuff, because you can see what kind of difference that it's going to make to the world around us. And I guess that's one of the things that makes us also passionate within what we're doing, is that we have this desire not only for self-improvement, but that to be a win-win into the environment around us as well.
Completely. And that's the thing for me. It's not so, and at the time it was absolutely about improvement and helping people improve themselves. And as the years have gone on, my thinking has, for me, it's, I use the word expansion now rather than improvement. It isn't about we don't have to be better, we don't have to improve, we're not broken, we don't need to be fixed. um, but we are here to expand. We're here to expand consciousness. We're here to expand thinking. We're here to expand ourselves and the universe. And so that's, now that wasn't my passion back then, because my thinking wasn't there then, but now that's where my thinking is. That's my passion now, is to expand whatever we can expand. That's what drives me now.
Beautiful. And you see that this wouldn't be an integral health podcast if we didn't take a moment to just reference Ken Wilber, the kind of the forefather of integral theory, because within some interviews I've seen with Ken in the past, where he's talking about consciousness development, one of the things he's really talking about is that people are where they are, and we have no right to require them to be anywhere else. And if we're looking at it like stages of development, like this improvement, there's this sense that we ought to be doing more, that we ought to be somewhere other than where we are. And some people might never have the tools or the inclination to do that development, and we don't need to judge them for that. Because if somebody's at, let's say, level 3, we want to know why they're not at level 4. If they're at level 5, why aren't they at level 6? Because there's always somewhere else to go. So I love the fact that you're talking about it like expansion, that there's an option to add more in. And that's certainly what we see in consciousness development, is that as each stage grows upon each other, we transcend our previous stage, we include all the usefulness of it, we drop away all the limitations, and we enter into a new stage of consciousness that is actually more complex than the previous one, because we've expanded our range of awareness. And it's something that in integral we call ladder climber view, so that each step up the ladder, the view broadens, and you got no idea what it was going to be at the rung below, because you just can't see it.
Oh, well, my word, I love that completely. Yeah, that's it. Exactly. That's it. You take what you've already learned, what you've already experienced, and move up. But absolutely, one of the very first lessons I learned as a therapist, as a jobbing therapist, was you go at the client's pace. I'm not here to tell my clients, even though even in the first meeting with them, I might be able to see where they could be or what they could achieve. That's none of my business. It's not my place to tell them that. It's my place to work with them at their pace to achieve or change whatever it is they want to change or achieve at the rate that they want to do it. And if they don't, and if they can't, again, that's none of my business. It's not my
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, and it's beautiful to have that reflected as well. I don't think that's perhaps voiced enough in how I've experienced communication to clients from therapists sometimes, that it's okay for you to be where you are. And it's not that you're broken or damaged or not good enough or anything like that. You're perfectly okay to be where you are. But if you want to explore other possibilities, then we can explore other possibilities. If there are things that you feel are limiting you, then we can try and see if we can change that perception of limitation.
Yeah, that. God, I could listen to you talk for ages. I want to listen to you now.
We'll have to do a swap sometime then.
Yeah,
We'll work it out. Yeah. So what's the thing that you know in doing this work? I mean, I love this vitality and engagement that we're experiencing here on the interview. So what is it that you really love? Like, what's the thing that gets you up every day going, yeah, man, I'm going to do this again,
yeah, dude. Yeah, dude. I'm good.
dude.
Um, I think it is that the possibilities. It's that idea of utter possibilities of what, I might have a plan for the day, but actually have absolutely no idea what's going to happen or how it's going to be. I can intend it to the fullest of my ability, and it still might go a completely different way. For me, that's what makes me get up and go, yeah, dude, come on, let's do this again. And let's see what today's got. Let's see what happens today. Let's see what excitement comes my way or what challenges come my way, even. Because for me, challenges are a way of growing, they're a way of expanding. They've got something for me in them. I have no doubt of that whatsoever. Doesn't mean I enjoy them, doesn't mean they're easy, doesn't mean I just breeze through them going, oh, yeah, this is easy. It's they're still difficult and there's still hard stuff, and I still have the relevant emotions to go with that difficult stuff. But underneath it, I know that whatever I'm going through is gonna grow me in some way. It's gonna benefit me in some way.
Joe, I'm so glad we're having these conversations. I feel in some ways like I'm talking to a bit of a mirror here. Like that some of the words that are coming out of your mouth there are so similar to some of my experiences as well. The day is as the day is. It's going to present itself in a myriad of ways that we can't even begin to perceive. Even in this moment, we have no idea exactly where the next moment is going to go. And for 18 years now as a kinesiologist, even when I think I know why somebody's coming, I really don't know what we're going to do with that. And the beauty of kinesiology as a treatment then is to explore in that moment with the capacity of that person on that day, where are we going to take that, and what is it going to reveal, and how is that going to contribute into the journey of that person. And I think for a lot of people, we think, and again, this is why I love your pillow behind you, your happiness is not a destination, it's a way of life, is that we think that we have somewhere to get to, and there isn't anywhere to get to, and beyond that, there isn't actually anyone to get to the place. There is only this sense we have of what's around us, journeying in this moment through the kind of the chaos of the cosmos in whatever way it shows up on that day.
Yeah, and that's it. And when I started out as a therapist, that scared the shit out of me, not knowing what was gonna, like you say, I would prep to within an inch of my life for a client, and then the session would go off on a complete tangent, and something completely different than I thought was going to come up would come up. Something completely different to what the client thought was going to come up would come up. And you go off on a completely different journey. And that really, just the thought of that possibility used to scare the absolute shit out of me. I was like, oh crap, what if I'm not good enough? What if I can't guide them? What if I can't facilitate that? Now it excites the pants off me, so, and that's my journey, that's my progression, because now I'm like, come on then, let's see what's really underneath here, let's see what's really going on. I love that. I did a post on my social media over the weekend because I was doing some inner work with some journaling and stuff myself, and some self-hypnosis over the weekend. And I talked about it in my Facebook post, and I said at the end, I love untangling that. I love the untangling of the, oh, this is what's happening, and that's what that thought process is, and that's what that's doing. And and I get excited about doing that for myself now, where again, that used to scare the shit out of me. And I get just as excited helping my clients do it too.
And yeah, I mean, I can totally totally relate to that. Like as a kinesiologist as well, when I travel around, I've got these two massive crates of test samples and other various things that I use within the practice. And I can remember the first time that, for whatever reason, I turned up to the clinic actually up in Chester, and I opened the boot of my car, and none of my kit was in there because I'd forgot to put it in. So I literally had my hands and a pen and paper, and it was just like, shit, what am I going to do? The client is expecting kinesiology. What am I going to do? And it turned out to be one of the most dynamic sessions I'd ever run, because we were just creative in that moment in such a unique way that it still did exactly what it was going to do. And when I used to teach kinesiology, I used to say that, if you had a banana, a rock, and a leaf, and you asked a body how you could make it better with those three items, it would work out a way of how to use them, when and in what order, that would improve its state of health. Now, if we had 20 different items, we'd get a different sequence. If we had 50 different items, we get a different thing, because the possibilities get created. But there's always the possibility to create a change if you're willing to just, and again, this is the beauty of things like the mindfulness, just be in that moment and go, okay, what can we do?
Yeah, and I've had similar situations where, when I started out as a jobbing therapist, I used to go out to most of my clients, which is fairly unusual. Most therapists have people come to them, to their home or their office or whatever. But I did quite a lot of networking about an hour away from where I live. So I would meet people and they would be like, oh, well, I need sessions with you to change this. And then I'd say, okay, cool, I live here. And they go, oh yeah, no, I can't travel that far. So, so I used to go out to them because I was like, okay, I'll come to you then, whatever, let's do the changes. So again, I would have situations where I wouldn't have the hypnotherapy script that I needed for that thing that I knew the client and I were going to work. And again, you have that heart-stopping moment where you go, oh crap, crap, I haven't got my crutch, I haven't got my tool here that helps me feel better in running the session for my client. But what it did was teach me to start relying on my intuition, to tune in to what I felt the client needed, to what I was feeling from the client, and to just see what came out my mouth, which, just sometimes was utterly astounding to me. I didn't know what was going to come out my mouth till it came out my mouth. But for me, what that helped me do was start me tuning into my intuition a lot more. And now I very rarely use a script with a client. I mean, I work mostly online with people now, but I don't use scripts anymore. I don't tend to use that kind of crutch, because I just see what comes up from the client, and see what comes out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Is a surprise for everyone.
And that's where, for me, the real richness in therapeutic practice comes, because it's then about true presence. It's about true embodiment in that moment with that individual, which is as unique as it can get. And then we are just allowing whatever is going to flow, whatever's going to blossom out of that space, to come through.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, that's what it's all about these days. Um that's the key part of the process for me, is being able to tune into that client and their needs, and answer them, even if at the time, and sometimes I've had sessions where at the time what I've said or what we've done doesn't really make any sense, And then I'll think, oh God, that was a bit pants. I'm not sure that did anything. And 9 times out of 10, if I feel like that, I'll get a message from the client 2 or 3 days later saying, oh my God, that was the most amazing session. And this is what's happened since. And it always blows my mind because I'm like, oh God, I thought that was awful. But the client's like, yay, you're the best, which is
Yeah.
ace always, obviously.
And I love it. You know, having spoken to so many kinesiologists over the years about various practices that we've done, we find that so often that we'll test up an idea or a vibrational essence or a something, and we'll, you know, I can see the look in their faces, and I can see it in mine. It's kind of like, what's this for? And you know, you just have no idea, and you're kind of looking a bit at the client and looking at the thing and going, I almost don't even want to say what's come up because I don't understand where it fits in. And you offer it to them, and they're like, oh wow, yeah, that's exactly what I needed in that space. And there's that real kind of release of going, do you know what, you can just trust this flow. You know, I don't kind of look at it on, there are certain scales I don't look at it at, but in those interpersonal moments when you're right there with somebody, there's something about that uniqueness that just creates something so beautiful that it allows me as the practitioner to also have a growth. You know, it's
Mm.
rare that I'll finish a day's work and not feel better at the end of the day than I did at the beginning of the day.
Yeah, and I think that's again part and parcel of being a therapist, isn't it? Um it's that I once had someone who I used to offer like a free trial of the Happiness Club, and for a whole month to get people to sign up and to obviously help them for a month. And I had this one geezer once who got to the end of his free trial, and I contacted him. This is years ago. I contacted him to say, um, are you going to sign up? He'd really engaged with the daily content and with the webinars and everything. And he commented to me a few times that he was getting loads out of it. So I was fairly confident that he was going to sign up. And he said, no, I'm not. And I said, well, oh, can I ask why? Is it all right to ask why? And he said, yeah. And he was really quite uppity with me. And he said, yeah, I'm not going to. It's been great and I've got loads out of it. He said, but I think you get as much out of running it as we do out of you running it. So no, I'm not. He was absolutely like offended. I would get anything out of my own work
Yeah.
that I would benefit. He thought that I benefited as much from writing the content as he did from reading it, and for him that wasn't right.
Sure, because of course you can't have anything out of work other than money, can you? You're not,
Bless
you
him.
have to suffer.
Yes, you must suffer for your art. But yeah, but it really took me back. But I mean, again, he helped me because I had that realization that I did actually. Like, I get just as much out of writing and recording the content for the club members as they get out of receiving it, and that's absolutely how it needs to be.
Yeah, yeah. And for years and years, I can remember kind of saying to people that I never really had post-holiday blues because I never minded going back to work because it was always interesting. You know, you never knew what you were going to get, and it was always beautiful to have people's reflections about their journeys since the last time you'd seen them, and so on. So, you know, it seems odd to people that we might enjoy our careers because that isn't the cultural meme, that isn't the nature of it.
That's it. And actually, I get the reverse sometimes. So we're just coming out the other side of half term here as this interview's happening. And on
Mm.
Friday, I was actually jonesing for work. I was like, oh, I love being with my family and I love having time off. And it was sunny and gorgeous and hooray. And we've got a puppy and I had loads to do and it was brilliant. But there was a bit of me inside that was going, please, can I go do some work now? Please, can I? Because it fulfills me. It
Yeah.
it it satisfies me. It helps me grow. Um, so I miss it when I'm not doing it.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. So what do you think are the greatest challenges really that you explore with your clients? What are they bringing to you on a kind of a standout kind of point of view?
So for me, especially at the moment, the biggest challenge I find with my clients and club members is the ability to prioritize themselves. to so there's two parts to it: the ability to prioritize themselves, but also the ability to allow themselves to rest, to relax. I find myself having the same conversation over and over and over again about the importance of relaxation. And it's like we have created this world where we're not allowed to stop, where we're not allowed to be anything other than busy, where we're not allowed to be not doing something. And there's an enormous amount of difficult emotions attached to that, guilt if we stop. And I used to be exactly the same: guilt if we stop doing something, worry or anxiety if we're not working constantly to bring money in to do stuff for our families. And actually, for me, rest and relaxation is vital. It's absolutely vital for our health and well-being. I say to people, my catchphrase is, it's not a nicety, it's not a luxury, it's vital for your health and well-being that you take time every day. Not like work like a Trojan for 3 months and then have a week off. Take time every single day to do something that gives you rest, that relaxes you. And I have conversations with people and I say to them, what do you do to relax? And they say, oh, well, I go for a 10-mile walk with my dog.
Yeah.
Okay, so no, I get that that's good for you, but if you could just explain to me how that's relaxing,
Yeah.
because that's not exercise is ace, and yes, it's good for your mental health, but it's not relaxation.
Yeah.
So there just seems to be a disconnect for me in
Yeah.
people's understanding of what relaxing actually is. Well, is it all right if could I watch my favorite television programs? Could I read a book? And I'm like, yes, those activities can be relaxing, but actually what do you do just to do nothing?
Yeah.
How often do you just do nothing? And it's
Yeah.
like I'm speaking a different language.
Yeah, sure. And I think that that's something really interesting, because you kind of highlighted in there that people recognize that they can do an activity that helps them change state, but
Yeah.
kind of going out for a walk or a run or something like that. But they don't necessarily recognize that those things are not relaxing. And it really plays back into that sense of, that there's a guilt around that. There's actually cultural shame around not continuing to do your bit. And personally, and I'd like to hear your reflection on this. I think this is totally magnified at the moment during the whole corona pandemic, in that we are being asked to be vigilant on behalf of other people's health and well-being, with the suggestion that if we are not vigilant, we might be the cause of illness in others, and therefore how can we relax?
Oh my word, that's a huge topic, isn't it? But yeah, and I mean, but that's the psychology of fear and all of that, isn't it?
Mm.
That's how we're being handled, if that's the right way to put it.
In a
Um,
grooming kind of way, yeah.
yes. Um, but yeah, that's absolutely creating guilt, or attempting to create guilt. It's going into that trigger of creating guilt in us for not doing our bit. um and I'm not against us all doing our bit,
Sure.
but um absolutely doing it for the not because someone's guilting us into it or
Mm.
pushing us into it, but because
Yeah.
it's genuinely what we feel we need or want to do.
Yeah.
There's a massive difference in those two things, I think.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, that clicks back into the other point I made before about the challenge with a lot of the people I speak to is about prioritizing themselves. And we aren't taught to do that from when we're diddy. We're not taught to put ourselves first. We're actively taught to put other people first, to consider other people, and to give way to other people rather than pursue what we think or what we feel. And it's kind of knocked out of us as children, sometimes literally, sometimes not. Um, and so we become grown-ups who don't look after ourselves, who don't know how to look after ourselves, who feel wrong for putting ourselves first. It feels selfish. and awful to prioritize your own anything, your own health, your own happiness, your own well-being, your own whatever it is. And I mean, even as I'm saying these words, I can feel that coming up in myself, because it's embedded so deeply in all of us that other people are more important than we are. And that's one of my biggest teachings and one of my biggest learnings is actually the most important person in your life is you. That doesn't mean you don't consider anyone else. It doesn't mean you can't be compassionate and kind. It just means that you are the most important person in your life. I say to the members of the club all the time, look, the only person, literally the only person that is 100% guaranteed to be with you for the rest of your life is you. There's nobody else that's guaranteed to be there every day, day in, day out, hour in, hour out for the rest of your life. You're the only person who's definitely going to be there for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I still carry around a piece of paper that I've had with my work stuff now for probably 16, 17 years. There was a quote I copied out of a yoga book written by the model Christy Turlington. And the quote in it says, no matter what it is that you seek, remember you are that which you seek. And that is just,
love it.
it's just beautiful. And again, it comes back to this: you can't pour from an empty cup. You know, if you nurture yourself, care for yourself, support yourself, not only are you in the best frame of mind to be able to support others, but you're giving permission to and encouraging others to do the same, which ultimately then means that you'll probably have to do less for others anyway. So it's a total win-win way of looking at the world. You know, and again, it really isn't about being selfish in an egocentric kind of fuck everybody else, this is what I want to do kind of way, but this is where I need to be first, and once I'm there, then I can offer to others too.
Yeah. And even that word selfish, it's if you look at the word itself, selfish, of the self. What's wrong with that? Why is it wrong to be selfish? But we've made the word selfish like this big, awful, horrible monster of a word. You must never be selfish. What? Why not? Just be selfish, be about yourself. Yes, please. Thank you very much. That's pretty much what the personal development world talks about endlessly.
Isn't it, just in a million different ways?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of interested as well. What's been your greatest personal challenge? What you know, because again, it's all really nice that we can talk about the successes and the greatness and the growth and stuff like that, but I like to highlight that actually I'm a human as much as anybody else, and I have my own issues and my own difficulties and my own challenges that don't stop just because I've been doing what I've been doing for as long as I have. So what's the kind of the greatest personal challenge for you?
Oh, so many. Oh, so many to pick from. The first thing that popped into my head when you asked me that question was motherhood.
Okay.
I have two beautiful daughters who I adore more than life itself, who every time I look at them, there's a part of me that is in utter amazement that I've had anything to do with their creation. It just blows my mind when I think about it. I have those moments where I suddenly stop and go, oh my God, I'm a mother. Whose idea was that? Who thought that was a good idea? But motherhood actually is one of the things that set me on the path to mindfulness, to training as a therapist myself. I had therapy already, but I really struggled when my girls were little. Really, really struggled with two of them. I went a bit doolally, and started modeling the behaviors that I had experienced as a child from the grown-ups around me, and it scared the fucking shit out of me, and I raced back to therapy as fast as my legs could carry me, and it was from those sessions that I then started training. My hypnotherapist basically said to me, so I said to him, do you think I could do this? And he said, I've been waiting 10 years for you to ask question. I was like, oh, okay. So you do then. So um
Brilliant.
so but yeah, that was, and it's a continual process, the whole
Yeah,
parent thing. The children grow and change
yeah,
all the time.
yeah,
They're now, I have a teenager and a preteen, so we have a new set of challenges and a new set of stuff that's coming up for
yeah,
me to look at and deal with and sort through and work out the best way for me to deal with that, so that I don't damage my children too much. And I still have absolutely no doubt they'll get to their mid-20s and end up in therapy about how awful I was as a mother. So it's it's that cycle, isn't it? So that for me, probably of my life, that's been my biggest challenge.
yeah,
But one that has, again, as we said earlier, has grown me in, I mean, my eldest daughter, actually, I was doing some gratitude earlier and I was writing out gratitudes for my family. And about my eldest daughter, I wrote, she teaches me more than any other human being has ever taught me. She was my firstborn. She was my first experience of parenthood, of being a mum. And she continually challenges me, which is utterly frustrating and totally beautiful all at the same time. So that would be my biggest, I think.
yeah, yeah, beautiful. And children are these perfect little shadow mirrors because until we condition them, they don't know what not to reflect about us, do they? So they're just brutal and honest and open and clean in that. And sometimes that in itself is a shocking revelation to be confronted with ourselves in such a way.
Oh, absolutely, hugely. I remember, I always tell a story about when my eldest daughter was about 5, and we had a friend over for her to play in the back garden while I was with my toddler. Um, and she was very excited to have this friend over. Uh, but that made her not very nice to her sister, and she was showing off and blah blah blah. And I got angry. She was misbehaving, and I got angry and shouted at her, and it ended up with me sending the friend home because her behavior was just awful. um and I shouted at her and sent her to her bedroom. And an hour or so later, she came creeping down the stairs, came and sat with me on the sofa, snuggled in and said, "Mummy, I'm so sorry I made you angry." And I just burst into tears because I was like, "Oh, baby, you didn't make me angry. I made me angry. I made me angry because of how you were behaving, but I made me angry. You haven't got the power to make me angry, my darling." And it broke my heart because I grew up thinking that everything around me was my fault. I had quite a turbulent childhood, and I just thought it was all my fault, that I was doing something wrong. Um, and I was just so determined that my girl wasn't going to grow up thinking that my emotions were her responsibility. But that's what we do to kids, isn't it? We put it on
Mm.
them. Well, and we don't necessarily do that on purpose. We just don't actively not do it,
Yes.
if that sentence makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like it's so beautiful. I mean, I can almost feel the energy of that interaction between the two of you, even though it's, historical in that sense. And I saw a beautiful meme the other day that was kind of highlighting what isn't taught in school and how much we don't look at anything to do with personal relationships, mental health, self-development. It's so many things that if we actually focused on those as skills that we help children develop overtly, then I think all of the stuff that we do teach would happen much more naturally anyway. And we'd have
Absolutely.
much more enabled children who were empowered to actually make the world into something greater rather than just be more meat for the grinder, which, it's kind of how I see a lot of how a vast majority of society is treated. We just want to get them into a functional state so they can go in and keep on churning more of what we've had before out.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. That's exactly how I see it as well. And I mean, that's exactly how it was all set up, wasn't it? That's
Yes.
exactly the purpose behind it. But I think that we're obviously the universe, the world is evolving and expanding and growing all the time, and I'm excited for my children to see how they evolve, what's going on. You know, their upbringings are already vastly different to what I experienced, and what I experienced was vastly different to what my parents experienced, and so on and so on. And that's the point, isn't it? So
Yes.
I find it quite exciting to see what their children will experience by the time they go to school. What will that look like?
Yes. Yeah, it's crackers stuff. So one of the other things I wanted to ask about as well is and you can kind of tie this in. We'll stick these two kind of questions together. Is how have you been coping with pandemic life, and what's the best bit of advice you feel you could give to anybody listening in onto our podcast today?
Okay, so actually, I have largely loved pandemic life. Um, Obviously, the idea of people that I love becoming ill or losing their lives, it's not great, not wanted. Um, Luckily, we haven't lost anyone too close to us, and we've been relatively healthy through the whole thing. So I'm utterly conscious of how fortunate I am and my family are. But in terms of actual living life through lockdown, I struggled with it to start with. My business struggled with it a lot. I nearly lost my business completely, which was a bit of a wake up call to how I was doing things. But for me, it's been just the most beautiful opportunity to be home, to be with my kids, to be with my husband, to be in my environment, which before the pandemic, before lockdown, I used to travel all over the place, running events, speaking at events, running workshops, trainings, da 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 da. You know, there are 5 working days in my week, or there were, and 4 of those I was out of the house every week without fail. And now it's the other way around. I actually only work 4 days a week now. That's going down to 3 soon, and I'm much more present in my own life, which has just been the biggest gift ever. So I have loved it. I think my biggest tip for people, a lot of the people that I deal with experience anxiety, and I think anxiety for me, with depression coming up a quick second, but for me, anxiety is the emotion that's raised its head most during this experience.
Mm.
Um, and the whole point of anxiety is that we're fretting about something in the future. We're making up a disastrous future and then allowing ourselves to be wound up and upset about it. And the reason for that is because we feel like we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen next, and it causes utter panic. And the thing I say to people is, the thing is, we never know what's going to happen. As I said earlier, we might have all these lovely plans for our day, but actually, you never know what's going to happen next. You think you do. You put all these structures and schedules and plans in place to kid yourself to think that you know what's going to happen next, but actually, you have no idea ever what's going to happen next. And I don't want that. I don't say that to scare people. I say
Sure.
to show people, look how you make it through every single fucking day, and you
Mhm.
never have any clue what's going to happen, and
Yeah.
yet you get to the end of every day safe and sound, largely, and tucked up in your bed.
Yeah.
So that's what will continue to happen.
Yeah.
Just because you're consciously aware now that you don't know what's going to happen next doesn't need to make that much of a difference.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. I love that. A version of that that I've used for many, many years is that we live on a ball of rock that spins around at 1,000 miles an hour and hurtles through space. What do you really think that you control? You know, it's that's the way it is. And then I back that up with, and you know what your survival rate for your worst days yet is? It's 100%,
Yeah,
because you're here talking to me. So
that's
you've
it.
got 100% success rate for the worst things that have ever happened to you yet. You know, most of that ain't going to change,
Yeah, absolutely.
so we can take it much more easy. Brilliant. um Joe, I'm really enjoying this conversation with you, but can you know, we've been at it quite a while already now. This has flowed really nicely, so thank you for that. Now it wouldn't be a good podcast if we weren't doing some promo of stuff that's coming up.
Oh,
So the first thing I want to jump in is that you are also co-author in the soon to be released project and book, the My 2020, which is done through our mutual friend Jessica Prime. And for those of you that are regular listeners on the podcast, you'll remember that it wasn't, was it last year or the year before, that we did the life after birth trauma interviews when Jess did the life after birth trauma book. So Jess Prime, who's best-selling author on Amazon, and you're working with her on this My 2020 book. Can you say a little bit about what that is, what your part in that is?
yeah, absolutely. So I've written a chapter in the book. I love what Jess does. I love all her books. She does books for children as well. My kids have taken part in those, and I've sponsored some of the books for her because I just think what she's doing is gorgeous.
Yeah.
And My 2020 really appealed to me partly because of what we've discussed. I get all the time, I get people say to me, "Oh my God, so you must be happy all the time." I say to them,
No.
no, because I'm a human being and I have things and challenges. I just approach them slightly differently than most people, but I do still experience those emotions and those difficulties. And so for me, actually, that the chapter was an opportunity for me to be completely honest and transparent and say, look, this is the shit that happened to me. I did nearly lose my business. I did grieve the life that I was living. I did love my life before. I didn't not love it. But at the same time, oh my word, it gave me the opportunity to do all of these amazing things that I wouldn't have done if I'd kept living my life the way I was living it. Not that there was anything wrong with how I was living it. Does that make sense? But I just got opened up to so much more because of the way my life changed. And so I just wanted to, again, is that I can't not. I wanted to be able to share that message in some way. And the book was just a perfect way of doing that.
Beautiful. And I love that as well. In a similar vein to yourself, last year became an opportunity for me to make changes into my business that I'd wanted to make, but didn't actually have the time and
Right.
the
Yeah,
balls to make,
yeah,
because it meant doing things that I thought were going to be chaotic. But because that junction was in there, and we had to close the clinic in Shrewsbury at the end of March, and that actually never reopened in that vein until we took on new offices in December. But it created so much variability that it enabled a change that wouldn't have been facilitated any other way, I think.
and that's it, isn't it? That's for me, I had to strip my business right back. I had to just 90% of my business was training,
Mm.
and it just went overnight, just disappeared. So I had to strip right back to my absolute basics. I mean, we've trebled the member numbers of the Happiness Club in the last year. In
Yeah.
fact, in the last 9 months, because we had to.
Yeah.
Because I had to focus on it because it was the only income I was going to get.
Yeah.
So and now I'm over the moon that I had to do that. But at the time it was like, oh crap.
Yeah.
But so for me, the book is just a beautiful way of being able to show that progression.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. And we hope you listeners will check into that, because it's being released in July. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Yes. So you'll find that at obviously on Amazon, and it will be available in other good book retailers as well. And also I understand that you're going to do a 5-day experience soon as well. What can you
I
tell us about
am.
that?
Yes. So every quarter or so, and again, this is what I started last year, I do a free 5-day Happiness Club experience. So it's done via Facebook, via a private Facebook group. But basically you can come and find out what it's like to be a member of the Happiness Club for 5 days, completely free of charge. You basically come into my world, and I will hold your hand for 5 days. So you get full blown. So the members of the Happiness Club get daily strategies, and they get 24/7 access to a qualified therapist. So you get all of that for the 5 days. So you can ask me any questions about anything at any point during those 5 days, and I'll support you through it and help you through it. And then on top of that, the normal club members get a monthly webinar, which obviously I can't do in 5 days.
Mhm.
So we have a half-hour live every evening. So it's literally an ask me anything. When I say come into my world, I mean come into
Yeah.
my world. I will come, ask me anything, and I'll help you in any way I can for those 5 days.
So there's a great abundance of awesome dudes getting together over that period to just bring joy into it all. Yeah.
What's the idea? Yeah.
Sweet. Love that. I'm just going to ask because for me it's popped into my head. So there's a part of me, because I mean I'm 45, rolling towards 46. So I was very much of the Bill and Ted the original Bill and Ted generation, and the Wayne's World generation, and the dude where's my car. And I just want to check in. Are those moments in your life that had meaning as well?
Absolutely, yes. I am actually more elderly than you, so I'm 49. So yeah, totally, that was my generation. I actually got the whoa dude thing from my nephew, who is now, oh my God, 16. But when
Yeah.
he was about 2 or 3, he used to very cutely walk around my sister's house going, whoa dude, absolutely everything. So I picked it up from him. But yes, I am Bill and Ted and Wayne's World. Definitely.
Cool. Brilliant. Joe, if people want to find you, get in contact with you, connect with you, what are the best places to do that, please?
So the best places to do that are through our website, which is thehappinessclub.co.uk, and Facebook. I largely live on Facebook, and I'm on there again as Joe Happiness Howarth, or we have the Happiness Club page on there. I'm also rather grown uply on LinkedIn as
Yeah.
Joe Happiness Howarth as well. So if you want to be a grown up and have a chat with me, you can find me on LinkedIn.
Is it any less happy if we're grown up about it?
No, not at all. I do
Good.
my own version of grown up.
Just checking. Brilliant. And you'll find links to all of those pages in the description for today's podcast as well. So, Joe, thank you. It's been a beautiful hour with you. I've really, really enjoyed that. And hopefully, it won't be 2 or 3 years before we have another conversation again.
Fingers crossed. It was gorgeous to chat to you. It's so nice to meet someone and chat when you are so like-minded and you get what the other one's saying. It's ace. Thank you.
Dude, absolutely. Thank you. Okay, everybody, thank you very much. Thank you for listening into the Integral Health Podcast again today with me, Ben Calder, and Joe Happiness Howarth. So take care, everybody. Keep happy, look after yourselves, fill that cup first. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.